Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday. Time for the main show.
Yeah, got another serial killer to talk about.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I guess I was like, this is kind of complicated nomenclature because technically he was convicted of 3 and they found out later that he had done another one. However, the 3 that he was convicted for, he did all at once, which generally would connote mass murder. However, I would lean more towards serial killer just because his methods were serial killer-like, and I would be shocked if they didn't find other shit that this dude did, because he was for sure a serial rapist.
Yeah.
And they know he did that. So
then that's what he is.
I'm kind of gonna figure that he's probably killed some more people that they're
got away with it.
Yeah, and got away with it. He was executed in 2011. And in Florida, so this is a Florida man. He wasn't originally from Florida. He was originally from Ohio, but he lived down here for most of his adult life, and he committed a lot of crimes down here. And the main crimes that he was convicted for, he committed in the Tampa area.
And he really killed somewhere we used to live. In Altamont.
Yeah, I don't think he killed anybody there, but he did do some attacks, because he did. This dude was like a criminal from teenage years, you know what I mean?
One of those, yeah.
But he was also one of those motherfuckers that also had a normal life and blended in. He was owned, he had a wife and kids and shit like that, and so
he was getting wild.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say the crime that he was convicted for, which was 3 women, well, a woman and her 2 daughters, is really it's pretty vile, and just thinking about it kind of bothers me a lot.
I don't know the case. So
there's been other killers that did fucked up shit and everything like that. For some reason, this one really bothers me because I'm just kind of thinking about what it would have been like for them.
Was it worse than one than the guy who picked up the mother and the 2 daughters and took them on a boat ride? And
This is what that is.
Oh, it's that? Okay, yeah, all right. I know the case. Yeah, that's fucked up.
I saw. Yeah,
that dude's a serial killer.
I suspect. Well, because like I said, after he was executed, they were like, this dude must have done some other ones. Yeah. And they had his DNA, so they started putting it, and they got a hit on a cold case from 1990, another woman that had been unsolved all this time, and they found his DNA on her all those many years later. So they know that absolutely that he killed at least 4 people, 4 women, and then the 2 girls were teenagers.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. Just if it's the same guy that I just mentioned with the boat, no, that guy was a serial killer.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of dude that does that.
Serial killer shit.
Yeah, and there was other ones, they just didn't catch him.
I kind of feel like I said, I would be shocked if they didn't come out in years hence and say we matched him to all these other ones.
This dude probably killed a half a dozen more.
Because the case that he got convicted for, which happened in Tampa, in 1989, he was in his 40s, his early 40s. I think he was 42, 43, something like that. When he did that, and that's older and the thing about the way it was done, even at the time, they said this dude has probably done something like this before, because no killer just jumps into 3 victims at once.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know what I mean? They usually build up to that. So I would be surprised if he hadn't done it.
He was in his early 40s when he did that one. Yeah.
When he did this one that he got convicted for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't his first one.
So so that's when they finally caught him. They were just kind of we're gonna keep our eye out for other shit.
Guarantee you there was a cluster of them when he was a teenager that he got away with, and probably just a bunch of sexual assaults that he got away with, and a bunch of murders. That particular guy probably killed 10 people by the time he killed those.
Like I said, it would not shock me.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that even though he had a quote unquote normal life, when they caught him, and the weird thing about it too is that he must have been, I didn't see a lot of, I saw some trial footage of him and stuff like that, but I didn't see a fuck ton. And I saw little snippets of interviews and things, and he seemed pretty normal, But they said, like, when they brought him into court and stuff like that, like, all the women on the jury were like, ugh, like, they thought he was, like, fucking creepy. Like, just the way he carried himself, and they said he was real arrogant. Like, he's just like, oh, this is such an inconvenience. Like, I'll be out of here in no time. Like, he was just real like that, like, real cocky.
He's used to get away with shit.
And, well, clearly. And some people, too, like, one of the investigators, like, this detective that worked on the case, I was watching this documentary, and she said, she's like, when we caught him and I met him, and it's like, and I knew that he had been able to, lure women to various places, and he had also been married like 7 or 8 times, and like had a whole, like, I think he had 8 kids by like 7 different women or something like that. So he was clearly not creepy enough to like have him be really off-putting. But you know what I mean? It's so she was like, I just couldn't figure out like how he was able to like have all these wives or girlfriends or whatever, and he was able to like talk women into stuff, because he just didn't seem like, he seemed like a big nothing, or he didn't seem like any more like super charming or anything.
Well, who knows who he married?
Well, I mean, the wife that he had at the time that he did this, I mean, she looked all right. But and I will note too that a couple of the kids he had he was still a teenager. And he knocked up a couple of his girlfriends when he was a teenager and shit like that. But this dude, I don't know, man. It's just kind of like, I can't get a good read on him. He just seems like one of those... I mean, he had like a slightly messed up childhood, but not anything like some of the serial killer childhoods that we've talked about on here that were like super fucked up. It was like slightly fucked up, but not that bad. And, but... I don't know. I just kind of feel like after a certain point, like when he was a teenager, he was just like, fuck it, and he didn't really care about anything, and he's just like, I'm just going to do crimes. And like, he just thought he could get away with whatever. He seemed, like I said, just very arrogant.
He probably didn't think it was a big deal.
Yeah, that's the impression that I got. That he just thought, it's not, quit your crying.
He had it all normalized.
Kind of thing. Like, that's kind of the idea that I had. And the shit that he did to this woman and her daughters... I can't, like, I try to put my, like, I don't know why I do this, but it's like, I try to put myself in the shoes, like, what would it have been like to be there when that happened, and I was just like... He
never did tell exactly how it went down, though, did he?
No, because he never admitted it.
Yeah, they just...
I mean, they know from autopsies, and they know what probably went down to a degree, because a couple weeks before the murder, he had, like, lured another woman onto his boat and raped her, but she lived. And she told them, like, what he did and what he said. And that was one of the things that helped catch him. And she actually testified at the trial. And that was one of the things that
wonder why he let some of them
go. I'll get into that. They're not entirely sure because he never admitted it, obviously. But they have some theories about why that was. Because he, like I said, he did a lot of rapes prior to these murders. And... I just imagine he got to a point where he just escalated, and he's just like, well, I'm just going to, like, kill him so they can't identify me or whatever. So, I don't know. But, yeah, like, I had never heard of this guy either, even though it's Florida, so you'd think I would have known about it. But I didn't live in Tampa in the late 80s. I moved there in 2001 or 2002 or something like that. But I saw this on like some true crime program, like series that I was watching, and I was like, how did I ever hear about this fucking guy? Like, especially because it was Florida, and like, there was a lot of Florida stuff, like, and he did stuff like in a lot of places that I had been. He even did one crime, not a murder, but he did a crime in Daytona Beach, and that's my hometown, in case you didn't know. And then he moved to Port Orange, like after the murders, which is a little bit south of Daytona Beach, and I've been there many times. So I was just shocked that I hadn't heard of it. So I'm kind of glad this one won, because this guy. I mean, I say that every time. These are all fucking horrible people. I will say too, one of the best things, and honestly, this is one of the best pieces of true crime writing I think that I've ever read. If you want like a really in-depth kind of read on this, it wasn't even an article, it was a series of articles, and they're long. It's like a long series, and it came out in 1997 in the Tampa Bay Times, and it was called Angels and Demons by Thomas French, and it goes way into like the victims and like the investigation and the killer and all this other kind of stuff, and it's really good. Like, it's legit like one of the best. It won a Pulitzer, and rightly so. And they put it online like in 2019, so you can read it for free. There's also a book on Amazon called Tourist Trap by Fred Shrum III. And it was free to read on Kindle, but it was only 25 pages, so I read it in about 15 minutes. Two, I feel like it took, I'm not going to say it plagiarized, but it took a lot of stuff from that article. You know what I'm saying? And like some of the wording, because I read the article yesterday, and then I read this book today, and I was kind of like, that sounds just like the shit from the article, or maybe like reworded a little bit. So yeah, so you can read it if you want to. It's like, it's okay, but I feel like there was a couple things in there that weren't in the article, but it does seem like he just kind of rewrote the article a little bit. So the article is way, way better. And like I said, it's like 6 or 7, maybe even 8 parts, but it's like super long. But yeah, that was really good. So I read that yesterday. So yeah, like I said, this motherfucker, he's dead now. He was executed. Florida executed him in 2011. And he never admitted his guilt. But here's the funny thing. Like, at the trial, they talked to one of the jurors, like, on the thing. And she's like, we pretty much decided that he was guilty, like, in 5 minutes. And then we were just kind of like, well, we can't just come out in 5 minutes. Like, we got. So they just kind of like sat in there, like kind of going back over the stuff and everything like that. And then they're like, we sat in there for like an hour or so, and then we came out and said, hang his ass or whatever. But yeah, they really hated this dude. You know what I mean? And rightly so. And just and the shit the defense came up with. I saw some of the transcripts of the trial, especially when he was being cross-examined. And he was so arrogant and so cocky that when the prosecutor started going after him, and I'll get into, like, especially about this boat engine kind of issue, which is something that he was trying to use, like, for an alibi sort of thing. And he just kept hammering and hammering and hammering. You could see the dude, like, getting really uncomfortable, and he was just turning red, and you could tell that he's like, oh my God, I'm fucked. And I was just like, man, awesome. Like, I really liked how that prosecutor just kept hammering and hammering and hammering. And it's like, and he couldn't wiggle out of it. Like, he got him to like contradict himself, and it was really good. But yes, there's like a bunch of, there was a forensic files about this called, I think it was called Waterlogged. And there's a couple other documentaries about it here and there. And like, I can't remember the one that I saw. It wasn't Forensic Files. But it was another true crime series that did a thing about this guy, because that was where I first heard about him. So, Oba Chandler. It's kind of a weird name, Oba. I don't hear that much.
Somebody cursed him with that name.
I guess so. And that was his real name, apparently. Well, that was his dad's name, because he was actually a junior. He was Oba Chandler Jr. His dad was Oba Chandler Sr. Now, they said, I don't know if this is true, but they said his dad was actually a Cherokee or a Lakota. I'm not real sure. Which maybe would explain why he has an unusual name. So, he was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. So, like I said, he's not from Florida, but most of the shit that he did was in Florida. And his parents had 5 kids. He was the 4th one. And now his dad actually had a whole ass family beforehand, like a wife and kids, and abandoned them, and then married this other lady, and then had 5 kids with her. You know what I mean? Just your standard stuff. Like, dad was pretty strict, kind of physically abusive, which it's not good, but that was kind of more par for the course of the time. This is 40s and 50s we're talking about. Now, in what a lot of people think was kind of the thing that ticked him over into, I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't hear anything about him being like a problem child or anything like that beforehand. And then, like they said, after this happened, like, he changed. But he might have been fucked up to start with. I don't really know. But in 1957, when Oba was 10 years old, his dad hanged himself in the basement. Now, I don't know. I've heard that either Oba found him or the sister or his sister found him. I'm not really sure. But evidently, this kind of fucked the kid up. Story goes that at the funeral, Oba, like, jumped into the open grave and was, like, stomping on the top of the coffin or something like that. Like, said, like, what, you didn't have to do that or something like that. Like, so it kind of, he was 10 years old, you know what I mean? It kind of fucked him up, which I get it. You know what I mean? I don't know if that really happened or not, but some of the family members said that that did happen. And not too long after this, like, he started kind of misbehaving. So it could have been, which, like I said, I think a lot of kids would probably do that, like if their parent died, especially in a fucked up way like that. Not excusing it, I'm just saying it might explain it. So after his dad died, he starts, like, staying out at all hours, skipping school, and he starts hanging out with, you know, a bad crowd, and they start doing, like, just little, like, petty crimes, you know what I mean? Just, like, stealing bikes and shit like that, you know what I mean? And he was kind of moved around a lot, too, like, as a kid. I guess because his mom was just, like, couldn't deal with it. It's, like, 5 kids, and now she doesn't have a husband anymore. So he would get shipped off with relatives. Like, he had an older sister named Helen, and he got sent off to live with her and her husband in Tampa, which is how he ended up in Florida. And he would not go to school. He absolutely refused. And so Helen was like, well, if you're not going to go to school, like, at least she tried to get her husband to give him a job. Like, he worked at a factory. But I think he was 14 or something. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll totally do that. And the sister gives him money, like, to go to the factory. And he blows her off and, like, goes to, like, play pinball or something. And then comes home and is like, hey, you got any more money? I need to go play some more pinball or whatever. And then she yells at him and he starts punching windows and shit. And then Helen was like, I don't need this crap, and gave him to another sister whose name was Alma. And so he lived with his other sister, Alma, and his brother-in-law in Pinellas Park, which is also in Florida. And he went to school for a little while, but then, like, just didn't go anymore. And then he went back to Ohio to live with some other relatives. And when he was in Ohio, he stole a car. And during his teenage years, he was arrested about 20 times. A lot of it was, there was one assault and battery in there. A lot of it was property crimes, like stealing shit, robbery, that kind of stuff. And so, not great, but like I said, he was still a juvenile. So he wasn't, like, you know, I imagine he got sent to juvie and shit like that, but they didn't put him in jail or anything. So in 1963, he goes back to Florida. He goes back to Pinellas Park with his mom, and his mom had subsequently remarried. And then he gets a job in Largo. Now he's still, I think he's like an older teenager at this point, 1963, 1965. So he would have been 17, 18, somewhere around there. During this time, he had a couple of girlfriends. He knocked them up. And the two of them, or the two girlfriends, had 3 kids. But it will probably not shock you to discover that he had no interest in having children. So he's like, oh, well, it's your problem now. And just kind of left them. You know what I mean? So he's up to 3 kids now, and he's not even 20 yet. Now, not too long after Christmas of 1965, he went to Jacksonville, which is North Florida, and enlisted in the Marines. And he didn't last too long. I think he was there about a week. And then he got disciplined for something or other. And they sent him to Camp Lejeune, and he deserted. And then later, they found him in St. Paul, Minnesota, and sent him to, like, do 6 months hard labor, like, for deserting. And during this time, he kind of moved around between Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, and was arrested several more times, robbery, larceny, shit like that. He was also a con man. Like, he had a bunch of different aliases, and he would go around just, you know, it was mostly non-violent kind of shit, like I said, fraud, that kind of stuff. And he also had 4 more kids with 3 other women at this point. Now, he also had, during this time period between 1968 and 1973, he had mostly nonviolent offenses. However, and this is a red flag right here, he was also arrested for masturbating while spying on a woman through a window, like, of her house. Which, like I said, that peeping Tom shit, you gotta watch. Because that never ends well. You know what I mean? And I don't know, I'm sure this wasn't the first time he'd ever done this, but it was the first time he got caught doing it. I'm assuming he had done it before that and just not got caught. Another weird one was that he broke into this beauty salon in Cincinnati and stole, like, a whole bunch of wigs for some reason, which were, like, more than $11,000 in today's money. These were nice wigs, I guess. So he got arrested for that, for receiving stolen goods. Also, this I was interested in this because this happened in Daytona Beach, Florida, which is where I was born. This was in 1976. Him and a friend of his broke into a house of a couple that lived in Daytona. He had seen them earlier in the day, like on a boat or something, and he saw that they had a bunch of money. Like, he'd seen them like the day before. So his friend ties the husband up with cable, and then Oba takes the woman into the bedroom and makes her strip down to her underwear and then tied her up. He didn't rape her, though. He just took his revolver and, like, rubbed it on her stomach. And I was like, okay. That's a little weird, but yeah.
That's his kink.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he absolutely did rape people later, but it's just kind of like, I guess this was like the first time. Like I said, he's escalating, because you had the peeping Tom thing in 73 or whatever that was. And then this is a few years later where he's actually kind of building up to it, I guess.
How old is he at this time?
1976, so he would have been 30.
Okay.
30. About 30. They stole a bunch of shit from the house. They took a rifle, a shotgun, some cash, and they took their dog for some reason. Sadly, I do not know what happened to the dog ultimately. He did get arrested for this a couple weeks later. And when they picked him up, like when they arrested him, he also had marijuana on him, so he also got for drug possession.
So they didn't mention what happened to the dog. Huh?
That's what. I was like, what happened to the dog?
Yeah.
Was the dog okay? Why did they say it was a Doberman? Like, I was like, why the fuck did they steal the dog? What a weird thing to do. So yeah. So he got a plea deal for this, and so he only had to plead guilty to a single count of armed robbery, and he got 10 years. Now, during this time that he was in prison, I don't think he served the whole time, but during this time, they were doing like a psychological evaluation and IQ tests and stuff like that, and determined that although his reading level was pretty pathetic, he actually had quite a high IQ. Not genius level, but well above average. And they also said that he talked a big talk about being super Christian and stuff, but his actions didn't really back that up. You know what I mean? Now, so he went to prison. He was in there for 5 months, and they were letting them work on the side of I-95, and he escaped. Yeah. So, like I said, he didn't serve that long. So he decided he's going to stay in Florida. And at this point, he's living around the Orlando area and doing con man shit. Like I said, he had a bunch of aliases. James Thomas Wright was the one that he used most of the time, but he had some other ones too. And he would also give like fake jobs. Like he would say he was a draftsman, or he was an x-ray tech, or an apartment manager, or something like that. And he would always say he came from somewhere else from where he came from. Like he couldn't help himself. So between 1978 and 1981, he was arrested 3 times. 2 of those times were for prowling, and once was for vending machine theft. I don't know if he stole the whole vending machine or if he just stole shit out of a vending machine. You know what I mean? Also, he did the spying on women through the window thing. He did this in Altamont Springs, that's where Tom lived when I met him. That's not far from here. It's a suburb of Orlando. So yeah, he was peeping at her through the window. And when he would get arrested for this stuff, like, he had fake social security cards, he had fake IDs, he had all kind of shit. You know what I mean? But this is, 70s, 80s. They didn't really have, like, a nationwide database. They didn't really have anything you could check. So it's like they didn't really check and see that he had, like, a long record in Ohio and shit like that. So by the time 1982 rolls around, he had actually was living in Maitland, which is where Good Times Bar and Grill is, where we go to. He lived there with his girlfriend, and he had started, like, a seemingly legit aluminum siding business, like, out of his house. Also, though, because, like I said, he seemingly couldn't help himself, he was also counterfeiting money. Because why not? So he's making $20 bills. Also, he worked as a police informant under his alias. So there was that, too. Now, so yeah, he apparently would give them tips to raid, like, porn bookstores and stuff. Like, I don't know what that was about. But yeah, so he's a police informant, and he's also counterfeiting money in his house. Now, he did eventually get caught for this because they picked up these 2 kids, like 2 teenagers, and they had fake $20 bills. And they said, hey, it was this, older guy named Jim gave us these. Because, like I said, he was going by the Jim Wright alias. And so they eventually, like, tracked him down, like, after a few months. So he actually got busted by the Secret Service that time. Because counterfeiting, that's kind of a big deal. And so they found a bunch of fake money in his trunk of his car.
Evidently, it wasn't easy to pass.
Yeah.
And using it must not have been that good.
I don't know how long he was doing it. I mean, I guess it must have been. I don't know. I kind of feel like counterfeiting, especially at this time period, you really have to be, like, on the ball, especially if you're just counterfeiting smaller bills like he was. Yeah. He was just doing 20s. It's like most people don't really look at those that close. Like, I wouldn't.
Must not have been any good.
Yeah, maybe not.
If he had a bunch of it.
Yeah.
Because he's not passing it.
Yeah. Or he was, and he just wasn't getting busted.
Yeah.
Like I said, the only reason that they caught him this time was, like, these 2 kids. They were trying to buy concert tickets or something with, like, fake $20 bills. And they were like, where the fuck did you get these? And they said, oh, this guy named Jim gave them to us. Or sold them to us or whatever.
A good counterfeit is indistinguishable.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the ideal, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to be... You're supposed to be able to pass it.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of making counterfeit money.
The problem is the paper.
Mm.
That's half the problem.
Wasn't there one guy that used to, like, take actual, like, beat up, like, $1 bills and, like, bleach them somehow or something like that, and then use the same paper and then turn them into 20s or 100s or whatever?
It's a bunch of old tricks, yeah.
Yeah, that was, like, one of the old school shit you could do. Which seems like the smarter thing to me, because at least you're using the right paper. Yeah, Gramther says most police informants are pure criminals just making some extra money telling cops about other criminals. It's a side hustle. Yeah, exactly. And that's what this motherfucker was doing. But like I said, I think that at this stage, they didn't realize the extent of his criminal record. I mean, they knew he was a criminal, obviously, but it's like, I don't think they knew about all the shit that he'd done, like in Ohio and other states like that. So he got 7 years for the counterfeiting. And so he got sent to, like, kind of a lower security federal prison in Texas. And then in 84, he got transferred to another federal prison in Florida. That was for another, like, a robbery conviction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What?
Horror fans saying that he probably killed the dog. I don't think so. It was a Doberman, and in the 70s, the Dobermans were worth a lot of money. What he did is he probably sold it.
He probably sold it. I mean, because they took stuff they took guns and cash, like stuff that was valuable. So maybe they thought it was somebody will want it.
In the 70s, the Doberman was a hip dog to have, and
you don't see them a lot anymore. Now that I'm thinking about it,
they were in style, and they were expensive. So he probably just sold it.
Yeah, that's probably the more likely.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that's all that happened. Poor dog.
Yeah, you could have got a couple $100 for it back then.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is a really nice dog. Yeah. Yeah, Grumster says federal prisons are like Hiltons compared to state penitentiaries. Yeah, I mean, that's why people complain about people going to these federal prisons. So he got released in
federal penitentiaries are better than state prisons.
Federal prisons are like Hiltons compared to state penitentiaries. That's what he said.
Yeah, yeah. But the way you said it, they were saying they're complaining about going to.
No. That's not what I said.
Oh, okay.
I said that's why.
Fed time is easy time.
No. What I said was that's why the rest of us complain when somebody that did something fucked up goes to federal prison. Because it's like, that's like staying at a fucking nice hotel. That's probably nicer than most people's apartments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I said. CB said he probably lied as an informant and innocent people got fucked over because he most likely got power doing it. Yeah, I could see him doing some shit like that. So after he got released in 1986, they don't really have any other records of him like doing any crimes in a couple years later. They do know that in May 88, he married a Deborah Ann Whiteman. And the two of them moved to Tampa Shores. And they bought a house there. And they had a daughter, whose name I think was Whitney, in February 1989. And he had a business going and also was working as a police informant for the Tampa Police Department now. And at this stage, it seemed like people that knew him thought he was just a regular guy, like just a respectable contractor type dude. He had a wife, he had a baby, he had a business, had a house. He just seemed like a normal, dumpy, middle-aged white dude. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, he just looks just like that. And like I said, at the time of the triple murder, which he was convicted of, I believe he was about 43 years old. So, like I said, very old to be doing this kind of stuff, which leads me to believe that this was not the first time he had done this. But they don't know, because the other one that they later found out that he had done, that happened after this. Because I will say that after this happened, it took them like 3 or 4 years to catch him, because it was random. See, they had no idea like who this dude was, so it took a long time for them to figure out that he had done it. So, May of 1989. Was a 36-year-old woman named Joan Rogers, and she had 2 daughters, Michelle, who was 17, and Christe, who was 14. Now, they were from Wilshire, Ohio, and they lived on, it was a tiny little village, and they ran a dairy farm. The dad and husband, whose name was Hal, he ran the dairy farm, and the wife and the kids also worked on the dairy farm. But the wife also worked the night shift, like at a factory, and obviously the girls were in high school, but they helped out on the farm too. Now, these women had never left Ohio before and had never been on a vacation before. But they decided that they were going to spend a week's vacation in Florida, and they were very, very excited about it. Now, Hal, dad, husband, could not go because he's like, you have a dairy farm, you can't really leave it. It's like I have all these 80 cows I got to milk and twice a day, and, there was all kind of shit. So he's like, but you know what? He's like, you guys go. He's saved up money for them to go. He's like, they've worked so hard and they've helped me out so much on this farm, and it's like, you guys deserve it. Just go. I will also note, and I'll talk more about this at length later, because this is just another heartbreaking fucking aspect of this whole fucking shit show, was that the vacation was partially to get the women's minds off of Michelle having been repeatedly sexually assaulted by her uncle. Yeah.
That was the older girl or the younger one?
The older one, the 17-year-old. But it had started when she was 14.
Right.
Yeah, so that was another reason. They were just trying to get away for a little while. So they were going to Florida for a week. And they were driving down from Ohio to Florida. So they drive down there in their Oldsmobile Calais. And they went to, and they know all this because they know where they went and shit like that. Because one, receipts. Two, because they found all of their cameras, like and they exposed all the films. So they saw like all the pictures and stuff that they had taken while they were on the vacation. So they drove down. They went to Jacksonville Zoo. They went to Silver Springs. Rode on the glass bottom boats. They had also like sent letters and postcards and stuff back to the dad. And Michelle had a boyfriend, and she had written to him a couple times and shit like that. They went to Orlando and went to SeaWorld. They went to Epcot. They went to MGM Studios, which is Disney's Hollywood Studios now, which is where we went a couple days ago. I don't know if they went to actual Disney World, like the Magic Kingdom or not. Like in the crime scene photos, like of the hotel room, there was balloons from there that said Disney World, but you can get those in any of the parks, I think, like as far as I know. So I don't know if they went to actual Disney World or not. So on Thursday, June 1st, at about 9:30 in the morning, the family checked out of the hotel they were staying in Orlando and started driving to Tampa. And so if you don't know, Orlando, Tampa, about hour and a half. That's about an hour and a half drive. And Tampa's on the west coast. Orlando's in the middle. So a little bit after noon on June 1st, they checked into the Days Inn in Tampa. They seemed to be planning on maybe going to Clearwater Beach and probably going to Busch Gardens, because they had like brochures and stuff for that. They got phone records later that showed there had been two, so they know they were still alive on June 1st. There was one phone call at about 12:30 from the hotel room. They determined later this was probably Michelle, like, calling her boyfriend, like, back home to say, hey, hi, we're in Tampa, we're doing this, that, and the other thing. And then there was another shorter one, like, at about 1 o'clock. And there was another guest at the hotel who saw them, like, all three of them, in the restaurant that evening, like, between 7 and 7:30 p.m. He said he noticed them because they were sitting, like, right in front of him, and he's like, man, they looked like they were having a really good time, and they were very animated and stuff like that. And that they had left the restaurant after dinner at about 7:30 p.m. This is thought to be the last sighting of them alive. Yeah. Now, several days later, like about a week later, actually, I believe it was June 8th. And a couple things were happening simultaneously, so I'm going to try not to be too confusing. So about June 8th, housekeeping at the Days Inn came to the manager and said, you know, there's something really weird. It's like this room 251, we've been in there every day, like, cleaning it, but, like, nothing is moved. Like, nobody's been in there. Like, the beds haven't been slept in, the towels haven't been used, and all of the people's stuff is in there, but it's all in the same spot, like, every day, and they thought that was really strange. And so they looked it up, and they're like, yeah, that room was registered to Joan Rogers, and they never checked out. So this room's been, like, unoccupied for a while, like, several days. So they're like, okay, well, where are they? And so they called the police. And the cops showed up, and they come in the room, and I will note, too, that, like I said, this is maybe happened like about the same time or a little bit later, because the 3 bodies were found in Tampa Bay, and it took them a while to figure out that the 3 bodies were who these were. You know what I mean? When they found the bodies, which I believe was June 4th, so 3 days after they were last seen, they were actually found like a boat was going under like a bridge and saw something. They were like, what's that? They just thought it was debris or something, but then saw that it was a body floating. And when the cops came, they found that the body she had duct tape over her mouth and nose. Her hands were tied behind her back. Her feet were tied together. She was naked from the waist down. And there was a concrete block tied around her neck with a rope that had been used to weigh down the body.
Her hands were tied behind her back?
Yeah.
And she had tape over her mouth and nose. She suffocated. She didn't
well, it might have been just her mouth. I'm not sure. But, like, she definitely had duct tape over her. Yeah.
All right.
And so, obviously, the concrete blocks have been used to weigh the bodies down. But because the water is so warm, it's summer in Florida, the gases had brought the body to the surface anyway, because of the bloating. And not too long after that first body was found, another boat, like in a only not that far away, was like, we just saw another body. And then there was another boat and saw another one. So 3 bodies. And all of them had the same thing. Like, they were all tied together. One of the victims had managed to get one of their hands free, but not in time, obviously, to save them. I think it was Michelle.
Yeah. She almost got free.
Yeah, but like I said, and they all had all exactly the same. They were all naked from the waist down. They all had duct tape over their mouths. They all were tied up, and they all had concrete blocks around their necks. And horribly, when they did the autopsy, they determined that all 3 of them had been alive when put in the water.
So they drowned.
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't the tape. Just put them over. Put the tape over the mouth to keep them from talking.
Yeah.
That's weird. I wonder if he did it all at once or one at a time.
They're assuming one at a time because he they know for sure. This is what's so horrible about it is that because of the way that this other rape went that they found out about later. They're determining that probably what happened was that he subdued the women somehow, either by threatening one of them, you guys have to do what I say or I'm going to shoot you or something like that. Yeah. I don't know if he had a gun or whatever. And he tied them all up, and then he raped all of them, and then one by one threw them over the side. They thought that he probably got off on them having to watch their family members suffer and knowing that they were also going to die.
Yeah, that way because they weren't blindfolded, they could see.
Yeah, and they said that's specifically why he didn't put anything over their eyes. Yeah. He wanted to watch them. He wanted them to see it. Which fucks me up. I was just like, can you imagine how fucking horrifying that would have been? Watching your, especially that's your mom, and watching your daughters get raped and then get thrown over the side of it, but alive.
I wonder who he threw over there.
I don't know.
First.
They don't know. Yeah. But it's whatever order it was, it was just, that's fucking horrifying, right? So at first, when they found these bodies, they didn't know who they were. They didn't have any IDs. No one had been reported missing. No one local had been reported missing. But meanwhile, after they found out about this hotel room, with these people that they were like, oh, well, they must be tourists. And that's when they kind of, figured it out. And when they went into this hotel room where they'd been staying, they were actually able to get fingerprints off of a toothpaste tube or something like that was in the room and various other things. And they were able to match them to the bodies. So they knew that this was 3 women from Ohio that were tourists. And they also found their cameras, like I said, and they developed all their film. So they found all the pictures that they had taken. So they knew what their route had been on the vacation. Not too long after, because they were like, well, they knew that they had an Oldsmobile Calais because, when you check into a hotel, you have to say what your car is and what the license plate is, right, on the register. And so they're like, okay, well, it's not in the parking lot, so where is it? So they started looking for it, and they found it parked at a boat ramp, only a couple miles from the hotel. And it was locked, and it didn't look like anything had happened in the car, obviously. It looked like it had been there for a few days. And when they looked in the car, they found a piece of stationery from the hotel. They found an index card that had directions to the Gateway Inn, which is, I think, the place they had stayed in Orlando. And then they had the key to their hotel room, at the Days Inn. And then there was a Clearwater Beach brochure, which had some handwriting on it, which is going to be, a big part of the case. So from all this, like I said, they obviously didn't know about Oba Chandler at this point. So they're like, well, obviously something, happened to them. And they determined, the way that, they brought in experts to do, how the currents, in the bay and stuff. They're they were thrown off a boat. They didn't come off, the shore or a bridge or anything like that. There's just no way. So it's so whoever did this threw them off a boat. Now, interestingly, the first thing that they thought of.
I got a question, though.
What's that?
You said they were weighted down with a cinder block.
Mm-hmm.
A full cinder block with the two holes? Or
I believe it was, yeah. That's what they always showed in the reconstruction.
He had 3 of those on the boat.
Yeah.
That's not something you normally have on a boat. So he must have known.
Well, yeah, he planned it.
Yeah, the whole thing was planned. It wasn't just spur of the moment. That's wild.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? You tie it around a cinder block first and put a noose on the other end. You walk the girl to the edge, loop it around her neck, and throw the brick over. And
I guess so. I'm guessing that's what happened. Yeah.
He thought about it before he did it. What was it? What was it tied with? Just some rope.
It's a thick yellow rope. They showed. I saw the crime scene photos.
Yeah, it's just the shit you'd see on a boat. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Yeah, most people wouldn't have cinder blocks on a boat, but it's not anything that you would look at that and be like, uh-oh, kind of thing either. Yeah. It wouldn't be that weird.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything you'd remark
upon,
probably.
One girl managed to get her.
She had one hand free. Yeah.
You'd think she'd be able to get that noose around off her neck.
I guess she just didn't have time. I guess.
Maybe that happened post-mortem somehow.
Possibly.
He must have tied that pretty tight.
Yeah.
You'd think okay. He probably had a special knot on there, so the more you tugged on it, the tighter it would get.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it malfunctioned on one, because everybody had been pulling.
Yeah, you'd think.
Yeah, that's a fucking macabre fucking concept, huh? Watching your family members getting thrown overboard like that.
That's what I mean. That's what fucks me up about this.
And put pants on them.
And like I said, that's what they're speculating that he raped them because he did that to this other woman that lived, which we'll talk about in a bit. But
he didn't redress them or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but they
humiliating them.
They speculated that later after they found out who did it and everything like that, which took a while. It took a few years to find out who he was to catch him. But they speculated, and I think they even did an FBI profile when they were still looking for him before they figured out who he was. That it's he had been fantasizing about this scenario for a long time, and he had all the stuff ready, and he was just looking for
the right opportunity.
The right opportunity is what they thought was probably was probably.
Boy, that would have been quite lucky for him to think about it.
Well, he might have been trolling around all the time.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, when I get more into this other case.
So it wasn't just one day he found him. He might have been looking for many days and found what he was looking for. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Makes more sense now. What are the chances of him just on the day he wants to kill somebody and find this
No, I think he was just, like I said, like many serial killers, they're just in predator mode And
All
it's
the
just
time.
and kind of all the time, and they just kind of think
He had
about it
that
all the
boat
time.
already set up, probably. He's
Well, he
waiting-
took that boat out all the time.
Okay.
He was always out on that boat. Like that's what everybody
He's
said.
just waiting for the right opportunity.
Yeah.
Done?
No, but I mean, you could fill it
Alright.
back up. I guess
Alright.
it's kind of not. So, like I said, they didn't actually positively identify, the Rogers family until about a week after their bodies had been discovered. And the sad thing is that Hal, the husband and father back in Ohio, he's working on the dairy farm. He had expected them back prior to, I think, June 5th. Because I think June 5th was the Monday. And he's like, I wasn't exactly sure when they were coming back, but he's like, I knew they had to come back before June 5th because Joe had to go back to work and Michelle had to go to summer school and she was supposed to start on June 5th. So when they didn't come back, he started getting really worried. Now, he didn't report them missing for like a couple of days, which I think a lot of people thought was suspicious, but maybe he was just kind of like, oh man, maybe their car broke down or something like that. He did think it was weird that they didn't call because that wasn't like them. But I think he just kept hoping, that everything was okay and that he would show back up. But like after a while, he's just like, yeah, I think something really bad happened. And so he reported them missing. And at that stage, eventually they did have to call him and tell him what had happened. And because I kind of feel like this happens a lot. Now, I understand that like every time somebody dies, especially something like this, your first thought isn't it was just a random ass motherfucker, because it's usually not. I mean, what is it? 98% of murders, something like it. Some crazy high amount of murders are committed by someone who knows the person. So it's like usually if somebody turns up murdered, 9 times out of 10, it's their spouse or an ex or a family member or something like that, or somebody that knows them. So that's the first line of inquiry. So I kind of feel like even though Hal was back in Ohio, people they kind of wondered why he hadn't reported him missing for a couple of days, like even though he was worried about it. When he found out that they were dead, some of the people in town, this is a pretty small town, so everybody knew everybody. Some of the people in town thought that he acted weird or he didn't act sad enough or something. And they said, we didn't know what was going on. Like he was just really stoic and he didn't cry at the funeral. And he always had dark glasses on, so you couldn't see what was going on. And they said he just like went back to work like nothing happened. But I've seen interviews with him, and like I said, he just seems like a very stoic, like I said, Midwestern farmer type dude that doesn't do emotions. You know what I mean? So, the hell? What is
Probably
that?
those girls.
Jesus Christ, what is that? That's so loud. That doesn't do emotions. And when they talked to him about it, he was just like, I kind of feel like he just didn't know what to do. I mean, you get a phone call, your wife and daughters have just gone off for like a happy vacation in Florida.
Yeah.
You get a phone call, they've all been horribly murdered. It's like you can't process that information.
What can you do about it? Yeah.
And so he's just kind of like, I just went back to work. I didn't know what else to do. Like he just, he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But they had to investigate him. Like I said, they're like, yes, we know he was in Ohio, but it's possible that he could have paid someone. And they did think it was fishy that after he reported them missing, but before he knew they were dead, like before they had called him and said, hey, we identified them, he had pulled $7,000 out of his bank account, which the cops were maybe thinking, that's a little sus. Like maybe that was like the payment for whoever did it. They knew that he didn't leave Ohio because they said, this is a tiny town. Everybody knows everybody. And they said there was just no way. People saw him like at the diner, because they said when his wife was gone, he didn't cook for himself, right? So he just went to the diner, like, for all his meals. And it's like, so they saw him there, like, every day. Like, everybody saw him. So it's like, there's no way he could have driven all the way fucking down to Florida. And so when the cops went up there and interviewed him, they were basically like, well, why'd you pull $7,000 out of your account? And he said, well, when his family was still missing, he was going to take the money and he was going to rent a plane and he was going to fly the route that they had taken to see if they had broken down somewhere or something. Like, he was going to go look for them.
Yeah.
And so the cops were like, well, where is that money? And he had it all still. So he's like 6,000 of it was in his glove compartment of his truck, and then the other 1,000 was in his pocket.
Right. Yeah.
So they're like, so obviously, and he took a lie detector test and he passed it.
Yeah, that's logical. I'm gonna go find him.
Yeah, he didn't. Like I said, he's like, that's the first thing I could think of.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rent a plane and I'm gonna fly down there. I'm gonna fly the route that they took and see if they're broken down somewhere, or if something happened to them. Like, I'm gonna go find them. And he still had the money, obviously, because before he could do that, he found out that they were dead. But like I said, they had to investigate. Because they always do. You know what I mean? So, and then, then they find out about Hal's brother, Joan Rogers. And that was another angle that they had to explore, because after the women were murdered, they found out, as I mentioned earlier, that Michelle had been sexually assaulted multiple times by her uncle, Joan Rogers, who he worked on the farm and he lived like on a trailer, like in a trailer, like on the property. And he had started molesting her when she was 14. He also sexually assaulted 2 other women. I believe one of them was his roommate, or his girlfriend or something. And he actually got arrested and imprisoned for that. And Michelle didn't want to testify against him, which, you know, she was a teenager, I get it. And so, but he got imprisoned for the other rapes. So he was actually in prison at the time the murders happened. But again, they thought, well, you know, maybe he was taking revenge on Michelle and he, you know, hired somebody to do it or whatever. But the more they investigated that, they're like, obviously he's a piece of shit, right? But they're like, one, he didn't even know that Joe and the girls were going on the vacation, so he wouldn't even know they were in Florida in the first place. He didn't know anything about it. And they're like, he was kind of a loner. He didn't even know anybody in prison. Like, he didn't talk to anybody. So it's not like he had, like, connections that he could, like, set all this shit up. So that also kind of went nowhere. So even though they have all this, I don't know, they didn't have a fuck ton of evidence either, because, you know, the bodies had been in the water for a few days, and that, you know, obviously washes away a lot of evidence. They investigated the husband, they investigated the uncle. That didn't really go anywhere. And so a few years go by, and they just don't really have any leads or anything. They bring in the FBI to do a profile, and the FBI says, this is probably a serial killer, and he probably lives around here. They said he's probably very familiar with the area, and he probably looks normal on the surface. Like, he probably has a job, probably has a family, no one suspects anything. So, you know, they were pretty spot on, gonna say. So yeah, but like I said, they didn't know. They did have a fuck ton of tips coming in, though, and obviously they had to investigate all of them, and they were getting overwhelmed. Now, one thing that they did investigate was that in the car, when they found Joe's car by the boat launch, she had written in her handwriting, there were directions to the boat launch. And it said, at the end, it said blue with white. So they were assuming that she was talking about a boat, like a blue and white boat. So they said, okay, so we're looking for a dude that probably lives around here that has a blue and white boat. But, you know, I don't know if you've ever been to Tampa before, but it's like, there's a lot of blue and white boats. Most boats are blue and white, actually.
I thought there was a number of some kind of fucking dock that they were at too, though, wasn't there?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, from what I saw from the photos, it wasn't. It didn't have a sign or anything. It was just kind of like a little. It was like a little parking lot with like a place where you could back your boat into the water. It was off the Courtney Campbell Causeway, if you know where that is.
That's where their car was?
That's where the car was parked.
And it said blue and white. He didn't get rid of their car.
No, he just, they just left it there. He just left it there.
He threw them overboard with the keys on them. I wonder.
I think,
he had the keys to that car.
They drove there in the car. I don't know what happened to the keys after that. I know that they did find a set of keys to that car, I think in Michelle's purse, which I think was either in the car or in the hotel room. So either the keys were in the car, or I don't really know what happened to the keys. Like the other set of keys
in the car.
No, because the car was locked.
There might have been more than one set of keys.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because I think Michelle had a set.
Yeah.
Because I think she drove. She was 17, so I think she drove part of the way, like her and her mom. I mean, the other girl was too young to drive.
The keys would have been in the pants, and when they threw them overboard, they didn't have pants on.
And he might have got rid of those.
Yeah,
because I don't think they ever found those.
Might have just threw the keys overboard and said "fuck the car." But him leaving the car there was how he got caught.
Well, yeah. Well, it was dumb because, and he actually, I think, even did say that to somebody allegedly.
Yeah.
Later on, that he should have got rid of the note because it wasn't so much the note that Joe had written, like that were directions to the boat ramp that said blue and white on it. Because, like I said, there's a lot of blue and white boats, and there's a lot of people that own boats in Tampa that are blue and white. But he had written directions for them on the back of a brochure for Clearwater Beach, and he has pretty distinct handwriting.
And was it in the car?
And it was in the car.
Ah.
I mean, it took a while, like, to match up. Because, like I said, this is random. He didn't know them previously.
But he's not as smart as he thought he was.
No, he's definitely not. I'm going to say that.
You would think that, well, I killed those 3 people, right? Threw them overboard, no traces. But their car is parked at the damn marina. Or the lot where we backed it in. And you would think that you can't leave that there.
Yeah.
But he didn't think that way. And then there was the information that got him caught. He just got lazy.
Yeah. And like I said, that was one of the main things that ended up getting him caught later.
Yeah.
Not the only thing, but one of the main things.
All he had to do is move the car, and that would have helped him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that.
No. I would have emptied that whole car out and then moved it.
Other than that, you'd have left all your fucking... Well, I guess the 80s, you would have left your DNA and fingerprints in it, but...
You'd go in there with gloves.
Yeah.
Oh, if you really want to be sure, you empty the whole car out, take all the belongings out, put that in your car, you're going to get rid of that. Somebody, you fucking set fire to that car.
Yeah. Burley Kev says, are you guys going to see Obsession in the theater? I kind of want to. Like, I've heard it was really good. But we'll see. Like I said, I got a bunch that I wanted to see in the theater that I didn't get around to yet. It was like 3 or 4 of them. Now, early on, okay. So I kind of feel like the case has gone cold. They know they're looking for a guy. Actually, I think at first, too, and they did an Unsolved Mysteries on this in 1990, I think. And at that time, they were speculating that maybe it was 2 offenders. And their thinking on that was that, well, it would have taken 2 guys to wrangle 3 victims.
Yeah.
So I think they did say that on the Unsolved Mystery. They were looking for 2 dudes. But I think, like, the more the case went on, they're like, nah, this is just 1 guy.
It was one dude with a pistol, probably.
I imagine he probably had something to threaten them with.
Yeah, and he was said, if you guys move, I'm going to fucking blast her.
Yeah, that's probably what it... Like, he probably threatened one of them to get them to do.
He's always got a hostage in his hands.
And like I said, I think he had planned this for a while, and it was like a fantasy of his.
Yeah.
So while they're looking around for a dude with a blue and white boat who lived in this area, they did get this one lead. And this is crazy because you would think, like, if you got this, you'd be so excited because you'd be like, oh my God, this is the guy. But it was not the guy. So this guy had a blue and white boat, and he had actually been seen offering a ride on said boat to a couple at the same spot where Joe and the daughter's car was. And he had given them his name and phone number, though. And so they looked him up, and he had a criminal record. Like, he had burglary, grand theft, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, so, you know. And they went to his house, and they saw the boat in the driveway, and on the ground behind the boat were concrete blocks. And one of them, like, had a suspicious kind of looking dark stain on it. And in the boat, there was some yellow rope, kind of like, very similar to what they had found around the necks of the victims. So like I said, sounds kind of open and shut. So they questioned this guy, and he said that he had been out on his boat, like, but he was with his buddies, like, when the murder took place. And then he said, then apparently he took one of the detectives aside and said, actually, I wasn't out with my friends. I was out with my girlfriend, but I don't want my wife to know.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So they actually went and checked that, and it checked out. He also took a polygraph test, and he passed it. So this was not the guy, even though he had a boat and suspiciously was kind of in the same area around the time. So yeah. Now, this is how they finally caught Oba Chandler, and it's like I said, it's kind of frustrating because it took like forever, right? So they found out about this case that it happened 2 weeks prior to let me see if I can find it. Yeah, 2 weeks prior to the Rogers murders. They finally linked this up. This woman named Judy Blair, she was in Florida with her friend Barbara. They were from Canada. They were from Ontario. And so they were down here vacationing also in May of 1989. And they said, we met this guy at a convenience store. And he seemed really nice. He seemed super harmless. He said he worked in the area. And he said, oh, it's kind of high crime around here. You guys should watch your ass. He told them his name was Dave, which it obviously was not. And he said he had an aluminum siding business, which was true. He's like, hey, I have a boat, and I can show you guys the area from the boat. And they said they were from Canada. He told them he was from upstate New York, which was a lie. But they said he was super friendly, and they didn't see any reason to fear him. And so he's like, okay, well, I'll pick you girls up tomorrow, and we'll go out on my boat. It'll be really cool. Now, the next day comes, and Barbara's like, you know what? I don't really want to go. I don't blame her, to be honest with you. And Judy, though, she was kind of like, nah, man, it'll be okay. Like, come on. And Barbara's like, no, I don't want to go. So Judy decides to go on her own. So she meets the guy about 10:30 in the morning, and he had a blue and white boat, and she told him that Barbara wasn't coming, and she said he seemed kind of bummed out about that. Now, they were out on the boat pretty much all day, and nothing happened. Like, she's like, it was just normal. Like, we had a good time, It's like he drove around the boat and all this other kind of stuff. And he dropped her off about 4:30. He's like, I'm having some, some problems with it. Why don't you go get some dinner, and then go get your friend, and then come back, and we'll look at the sunset, like, from the boat or whatever. And she's like, okay. Like, you can take pictures of the sunset. So she comes back later to do the night boat thing. And again, Barbara did not want to go. She's just like, I just don't want to go. And she's like, it's fine. Nothing happened. You know what I mean? Just like, we had a good day or whatever. So she takes her camera, and she goes back to the thing. And she's like, and this time, she says, my friend didn't really want to come. And she's like, and he seemed kind of pissed off about that. So you can see he wanted both of them. This is like building up. Like, he wanted more than one victim that he could wrangle. So he was very upset that the other woman didn't come. And so she's like, it was fine at first. They're on the boat. They're taking pictures of the sunset. It was magical and all this other stuff. And they started fishing. And she's like, yeah, it's getting kind of late, like getting kind of dark. I should probably get back. Like Barbara's waiting for me, like back on the land. And that's when he started to get gropey, which will surprise no one. He's like, hey, come here, give me a hug. And she's like, no, that's okay. But then he grabbed her and like started pulling and started groping on her and stuff. And basically he says, I'm going to have sex with you. And she's like, no, take me home. And then he keeps groping and she started screaming. And then he said, do you think anyone's going to hear you? And so she really starts freaking out now. And it's like, just please take me home. Like, people are waiting for me. They know I'm here. And so he starts the boat and she thinks, okay, he's going to take me back home. But no, he went like farther out into the water. And then he stops the boat. He's way out in the middle of the bay. And he says, you're going to have sex with me. There's no way around it. What are you going to do? Jump over the side of the boat. And she was just like fighting the hell. She was like, no, this is not going to fucking happen. I don't think she could swim. So she said at this point, like, he pulls his pants down and forces her head, forced to suck his dick or whatever. And then he like throws a towel to like pushes her down and rapes her. And he's like, shut the fuck up. If you don't shut up, I'm going to tape your mouth. And so, yeah. And he's like, is sex really something to lose your life over? She said she remembered him saying that. And this is horrible. She was on her period and he pulled her fucking tampon out so he could rape her. And then he throws her like a thermos filled with water and said, wash yourself out. And then he took her camera, ripped all the film out, and threw the camera overboard. And then he said, I know you're going to report this, but please give me a chance to go home to tell my little old mother. And she thought that was like fucking weird that he said that. She also said that he threw up over the side of the boat. Like, after it happened. Like, I don't know if it was just because he was upset about it or he got overstimulated. He was so excited that he finally did it, or I don't know what.
Weird.
But after that, like, he took her back. He's like, it was so weird. Like, took her back to the shore and, like, helped her off the boat. Like, oh, watch your step. And then she walked home. She thinks it was, she's not sure, but she thinks it was because she said that Barbara was waiting for her. And Barbara had seen him. You know what I mean? And so he was afraid he'd get caught, like if she disappeared.
Yeah.
She's like, that's the only thing I can think of, like, why he didn't kill me. Like, especially because she didn't really report it. She reported it, but they didn't link the two things. You know, they linked the murder. They're like, wow, that's like super similar. Like, same thing where he meets this, and he's just like, hey, I'm so charming. Like, come out of my boat or whatever. And then, like, once you get out there in the middle of the water, like, you know, he does this shit.
He thought he couldn't get away with killing her, but he thought he could get away with raping her.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that maybe she wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of.
Yeah, he thought maybe, yeah. I think that's what it was. Now, the sad thing was, she didn't actually report it at first, because she was just, like, freaked out. And she did, and I know they really tell you not to do this. Like, please don't do this, but I understand why people do, but it's like she just got home and she's like, I just want to take a shower. Don't do that. You're getting rid of evidence, but I understand why you want to.
He was thinking it's going to be a he said, she said thing.
Yeah, and he probably figured he could wriggle his way out of it.
Yeah.
Which, spoiler alert, is kind of what he tried to do, like, later on,
yeah.
like when she testified at the murder trial. But,
what's funny is that he couldn't just say, fuck it, and not rape her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He must have been pretty much out of control of his... He must have been fucking like a low impulse control type dude. Not very organized. You would think that he would... Well, I can't... You would think that he would have the wherewithal to say, well, if I can't get away with killing him, I can't get away with raping him either.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know... He's a serial rapist.
Yeah.
A serial killer just kills the victim so as to hide the rape. For some reason, he thought he could do that. Weird. But he was throwing up afterwards.
That's the only thing
Maybe
that
he
kind of
knew-
gave me pause about it, because I
Maybe
said
he knew he couldn't get away with it, but he couldn't control it.
maybe so. Like I said, either that or he just got so like overstimulated and excited because it's like he'd been dreaming about doing it for so long. But like I said,
No, guys aren't like that.
no, but I'm just saying that. And another thing too is that she was pretty adamant that he was really pissed off that she hadn't convinced Barbara to come with her. So his fantasy clearly, because this, you keep in mind, this happened, this rape, only 2 weeks before the Rogers family got murdered.
Yeah.
So he had been thinking about for a long time, like wrangling more than one victim and like having control over them.
Maybe he's throwing up because she was on a period.
Yeah, maybe so. Like maybe he thought it was gross.
Maybe, yeah, that's pretty weird.
Yeah, she thought it was weird too. It is weird.
Yeah.
No one's entirely sure why. But yeah, she did say that. And like the weird shit that he said too. Like,
yeah.
I know you're gonna report it, but like, yeah.
He's glitching out.
Yeah, I don't really know. But she didn't tell. I think she lived with her aunt, her mom and her aunt and uncle, and she didn't tell them. But she did tell Barbara what had happened. She didn't report it for a few days after that, though. And I think that when she reported it, and she was like, he has a blue and white boat, and also has like a dark colored like SUV. They thought it was a Jeep Cherokee, and that's kind of, I think that somebody had seen, like in the murder case, that somebody had seen like a similar, like a dark blue or black SUV that looked like a Jeep Cherokee. So that was like another thing. But I think one of the main things, and like I said, this is kind of frustrating because I'm not shitting on the cops in this case because it's, you know, they had a lot of tips and they were real behind. And this case took so long to resolve. This one documentary I was watching that talked to a lot of the detectives that worked on it, they said it was kind of a situation where we all really wanted to solve it, but it's like if it doesn't get solved after a year, 2 years, something like that, people like, you know, you gotta do some other shit. Like we can't spend all these resources on it as much as we might want to solve it. We have other cases to solve too. And so they were kind of afraid because they were on a deadline where it was just like, you better come up with something soon or we're just gonna like shut it down. Like, because they had a task force for a little while that had like a bunch of detectives, but then it kept getting fewer and fewer detectives because, like I said, it was taking so long and it seemed like they weren't getting anywhere. And so they were kind of threatening to like cut them off. It's like, we don't need this task force anymore. You're not getting anywhere with it. And one of the things that they actually got a really good, wow, if you see it, Judy Blair, the rape victim, she gave them, you know, she'd gotten a really good look at him, right? So she gave them a really good description, and they did a creepily good composite sketch of him. After they caught him, I was like, yep, that's pretty good. Pretty good. So she described him really good. So they put that all over the media. And then when the case had gone kind of fallow, and then like they brought in some new detectives like a year or two later to like look into it, they determined that it's like, look, did anybody look into this handwriting that was on this thing that we're pretty sure this guy wrote? I mean, it's not the victim's handwriting, so we're presuming it could be the killer's handwriting. Did anybody check that out? And nobody had, as it turned out. Nobody fingerprinted it either. So one of the first things they did was they fingerprinted the Clearwater Beach brochure that was in the Rogers car, and they sent the handwriting on there, which was directions back to their hotel. So they're presuming that the Rogers family got lost at some point going back to their hotel, and he had written directions, because that's what the directions were for, like back to their hotel. And he had written directions from them, and he had a very distinct handwriting. And so they printed the composite sketch in the paper. And at this stage, not long after the murders, actually not long after Unsolved Mysteries had done the case, Oba Chandler and his family had moved away. He had also sold the boat. You know what I mean? He sold the boat, and he moved all the way across the state to Port Orange, which, if you don't know, Tampa's on the west coast of Florida, and Port Orange is on the east coast. It's a little bit south of Daytona Beach. And so he moved his family over there. And when this woman, who had lived 2 doors down, whose name was Joanne, Had lived 2 doors down from Oba Chandler when he lived in Tampa. And she first saw the sketch, and she was like, that looks like my neighbor that moved away a couple years ago. Like, and she asked a friend, like, doesn't that look like him? And he's like, yeah, I guess, like, kind of. And she's like, I always thought that dude was, like, so fucking creepy. It's like, one time he was, like, out. She's like, I looked out my window one time, and he was, like, standing, like, not in her yard, but he was, like, looking at her window. Like, she's like, he always gave me the fucking creeps, right? So it's like, I thought it looked like him. And then, when they printed the directions that he had written, she's like, that looks like that motherfucker's handwriting too. And she's like, she had seen the handwriting because he was a contractor and he had done some work for another neighbor. So she had seen it on the invoice or whatever. So she kind of hemmed and hawed. She's like, man, should I call the cops about this? It's like, it really does kind of look like that. So she did call the cops and give them a tip. And they were like, okay, we'll check it out. But they never did. I think the first thing she did, actually, was she knew a deputy that was, like, in a class with her or something. And she's like, I don't really want to go to the cops in case I'm crazy. She's like, but could you just put this in for me? And just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's the guy, but it does look like the guy, and the handwriting looks like his handwriting. And he was like, okay, I'll see what I can do. But nothing ever came of it. And I think she called a couple more times, and it's like, hey, did you guys ever look into that Oba Chandler guy that used to live next to me? And they were like, yeah, we're on it. Like, we have so many tips, blah, blah, blah. But nobody looked into it. And then they finally figured out, they're like, okay, so they had this billboard up that had the victims on it and was like, who killed the Rogers family, like $25,000 reward, all this other stuff. But then somebody said, hey, why don't we blow up that handwriting, because it's, like I said, it's very distinctive if you see it, especially the way he makes Y's. Why don't we put that on a billboard? I will note that this is, according to all the sources I've read, the first time that the cops used a billboard. I guess they'd never thought of it before. This was in 1992 that they did this. And they put it on this big billboard. I think it was like on the side of Dale Mabry or something, like one of the main like the main highway or whatever, like it's where I-4 goes off into, because that's where I-4 ends. So that's where they put it. And when this woman, Joanne, the neighbor, saw the billboard, she's like, motherfucker. She's like, I told you that was like his fucking handwriting. So she called the cops and she's like, look, I've called you guys like 3 times. No one's doing anything. It's been like 1 or 2 years at this point. She's like, I'm telling you that's his handwriting. And she's like, I tell you what, I have another neighbor, and she had some aluminum siding done by him. And it's like, I'm pretty sure she still has something that he wrote in her house, like an invoice or something. So they go there and they found it. And they faxed it over to the cops. And again, they didn't really do much of anything until she kind of called them and bugged them again. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to come get the original because we can't really see this fax or whatever. So they come and get the original. And they look at it. She's like, the cops came to get the original invoice. And it had a bunch of his handwriting on it. They showed it like on the documentary. And she's like, her and the detective like looked at it side by side, like the brochure that he had written that was in the Rogers car and this invoice that he had given to this person for doing some aluminum siding work. And she's like, my knees just gave out from her. She's like, it was very, very clearly like the same handwriting. And she's like, that is absolutely the dude. And they had like a handwriting expert come in and said, yeah, that's absolutely the dude. So the handwriting thing that he left in the car, that was mainly one of the things. And the woman that had gotten raped before that came out and gave the description, that was also a big thing too. And there were also like a couple of other things, like after, like once they caught him, it's kind of funny because once they actually figured what they could do, because he was identified, obviously the Judy Blair, the woman that had been raped, she had, she was just on vacation in Florida. So she had gone back to Canada like a long time ago. So they actually went up to Canada to interview her, and she told them all about it. And like I said, gave them a description and everything like that. And they showed her a photo lineup, her and her friend Barbara, who had been with her and had also seen him. And they both immediately like picked his photo out. And they said, could we fly you to Florida and do a lineup in person and see what happens. So they did that. They actually did fly them to Florida, and they did a live lineup with Oba Chandler, and they both immediately picked him out. They said, yeah, that's him, even though it had been a couple of years at this point. So at this stage, they're like, okay, they don't have enough to tie him to the murders yet, because here's the thing. They're like, the main thing that they have is the handwriting in the car, right? But they're like, well, that doesn't prove that he killed them. It just proves that, you know, he saw them and gave them directions. It's like, for all we know, he could have just given them directions and just went on his merry way. You know what I mean? Somebody else could have killed him. Like, that's what the defense would say. So he's like, so we can't prove it. He's like, however, we do have a woman who was sexually assaulted by him who can identify him. So we're going to arrest him for that if we can. And then while we're going through that rigmarole, we're going to see if we can get more, evidence to nail him for the murders. So that's essentially what they did. They found out that he had moved to Port Orange, and they put him under surveillance. They tapped his phones, all that kind of shit. And they were just kind of like trying to figure out like when they were going to swoop in and get him. They also determined by looking at phone records, there's some way, they described it really good on this one documentary that I saw, but I can't remember like exactly what it is. But here's the thing, like if you call the land from a boat, like they can tell that that was from a boat, because you have to call like an operator, and then the operator usually takes the name of the person that called and the name of the boat that the call is coming from. You know what I mean? And they have a record of that. So they determined by looking at these records that there had been phone calls from Oba Chandler's boat, which was called the Gypsy 1 or Gypsy 2 or something like that, on the night of the murders, and also on the night of the rape of Judy Blair. They were assuming that he was calling home to say that he was going to be late or something like that. And that is indeed on the night of the murders. What they determined that he did was that he called his wife and said that he was having engine trouble, and he actually ended up being out on the water like pretty much all night. You know what I mean? Because that was like the night of the murders. They found that out later on. But so he
must have threw him overboard at night.
Yeah. Or he was just out on the boat all night, like doing. Because I think the weird thing is, he was seen. He came in to shore for a little while, but then he went back out again. And they thought, probably in hindsight, that he was going out to make sure that the bodies hadn't come back up. Is probably what he did. Like he dumped them, and then he came in for a little while to be seen. And then he was just like, oh, I got to go back out. Like I got to check and make sure they didn't come back up.
So he didn't savor the experience and keep him around as long as he could.
I don't really know.
I wonder how long he had him.
Well, they're not sure because, you know,
You think the women hours?
Well, the women were last seen on the evening of June 1st. They didn't find their bodies until June 4th.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine he probably killed them that June 2nd. Like, because I don't think they went out that night. I'm not sure. I think they maybe went out the next day. Although, no, that's not true, because their beds hadn't been slept in. So they maybe did go out that evening, like after dinner. Like maybe he had them come out like at night.
Yeah.
Because like the maid said their beds hadn't been slept in. And they hadn't used the towels, like nobody had showered or anything.
And had he been out at sea overnight? Do they know?
Yeah, he was in the boat all night.
So he might have kept him out there overnight. He actually could have killed him in the morning or the next day.
Yeah, probably.
He said he had 3 of them, so he'd want to make this last a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was seen at about 7 a.m., but then he went back out again. But like I said, they're pretty sure they were already dead by that point.
See, he's got 3 women.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to want to kill them and rape them all quickly.
Well, yeah, like I said, it was probably like an hours-long ordeal,
time, yeah.
I would imagine.
He probably had all kinds of weird situations, you know, making the mom watch what he's doing and this and that, and them trading off, you know. It was probably, in his mind, an orgy.
Well, yeah.
And then he started playing with him about who was going to die first or that kind of shit.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like he was fantasizing about this for a while, like how it was gonna go.
So it wasn't just some simple thing where I'm gonna go rape them all and then just throw them off. I don't think that's what he did.
Mm-mm.
And he played with him for a long time. They might have actually slept out there with him. If they could sleep. No, it's probably not. But
no, I'd imagine.
He probably slept. Because I don't see why he'd go through all this trouble just for something that you could do in an hour.
Yeah.
This is something that probably went on for 12 hours at least.
Yeah, because like I said, they didn't find him till a couple days later.
Right.
Like I think it was June 4th that they found the bodies, like in the morning.
For 18 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it could have been.
Could have been something prolonged.
I imagine it probably was. And like I said, because they were last seen at the hotel restaurant, like 7:30, and just from what I'm assuming, because the maid said their bed hadn't been slept in or their stuff wasn't disturbed, so I don't imagine they slept in the hotel room.
I think he threw the mom over first. That way he could have the teenagers for a while. Then he threw the middle one over. Then he kept the youngest one for a while. That's what I think, because she'd be the most horrified and the easiest one to control.
Probably.
He played with her for a while and then threw her over. Yeah, it was some kind of sick thing that he was doing.
Yeah, well, no shit.
Yeah.
So, when they finally arrested this motherfucker, here was a crazy thing. So, like I said, they had him under surveillance. They had his phones tapped. So, they were following him around for a little while, like in Port Orange, where he had moved to. And they were they're like, when is, like, the best time to, like, nab this dude or whatever? They were kind of getting ready to, hone in on him and pick him up. And then, like, they're like, he just very abruptly, like, drove out of town. And I think he went to, where did he go? I think he went to Georgia. So, like, he got on 95 and was, like, going north, right? And they were kind of all like, what? They're like, should we get him now? Should we see where he's going? Like, they're like, we don't think he's fleeing because it's like he didn't seem like he knew that they were following him. And he didn't take his family or he didn't, take any stuff. Like, it wasn't packed or anything like that. So they said, okay, well, we're just going to hang back and see what happens. And as it turned out, he was just going on a trip or something. Like, I think he went to Georgia and, like, he was gone for, like, a week and then, like, he came back. And so I don't think that he knew that he was being monitored. But I think they did lose him, too, like, when they were chasing him at one point because, if you're not from Florida, particularly in the summertime, in the afternoon, you'll be driving along and then all of a sudden there's this horrible thunderstorm and you can't see shit. Like, the visibility just goes to zero. And that's, like, essentially what happened when they were kind of following him on the highway. So they lost him because they couldn't see anymore. But eventually, when he came back from wherever he went, they did actually apprehend him, I think, at a gas station. And he didn't give them any trouble. Like, he didn't fight them or act like he didn't know what they were there for or anything like that. So they bring him in. They arrested him, like I said, for the rape. Not for the murders. Because they were still trying to build a case for that. So they didn't want to, like, jump the gun, So they pick him up. And they start kind of questioning him about that. Like I said, after this, they had gotten the handwriting analysis. They had gotten the phone records. And various other things. And they had gotten the testimony of Judy Blair, like the similarity between her assault and like what had happened to the Rogers family. So they bring him in and they start questioning him about it. Now, his story was, which obviously this is what he would say. He said, I did meet the Rogers family. Like, I did give them directions. I wrote it on, a brochure that they had. But I didn't see them again after that. Like, I just gave directions. They were lost. And that's it. Like, I didn't have anything to do with killing them. And so they asked him, they're like, well, you were out on the water that night, though, because we have, like, all these phone records. Like, you called from that area. He's like, yeah, I was out fishing. I was all by myself. My engine wouldn't start. And I had a gas line leak. And I was out there all night, and then I found this gas line leak, and I called the Coast Guard, and they couldn't help me because they were doing something else. And he's like, so I flagged down a Coast Guard patrol boat, and they said, yeah, we'll send help later. We're kind of busy looking for a body right now. And I was like, that was a weird story to tell. But he's like, but I fixed it with duct tape and then made it back to shore. And this was the story that he gave. He didn't deny that he had met the Rogers women, but he just said, I just gave them directions and then I didn't see them again. Like, because they were lost. And that's why my handwriting is on their, and my palm print is on their thing in their car. But I didn't kill them. And yes, I was out on the water that night. I was out on Tampa Bay in my boat, but I was out there fishing and then my boat was fucked up. And so I was out there all night. And that's why I called my wife and I told her I was having engine trouble. Like, that's what that phone call was. The coolest thing about this was, oh, and another thing is in the rape case, because here's the thing, by the time he got to trial, they had enough evidence to do the murders. So Judy Blair actually ended up testifying at the murder trial. Now, normally in trials such as this, you're usually not allowed to bring in somebody talking about a crime that's not the crime you're being charged with. You know what I mean? Because if he was being charged with the triple murder and not her rape, then they wouldn't want her just talking about the rape because it'd be prejudicial or whatever. But in certain cases, as in this one, they did allow that because they wanted to show like a pattern of behavior, because her sexual assault had been so similar to what they believe happened to the Rogers families. They thought it was relevant, so they did allow her to testify. You know what I mean? And she did. And they said that she was actually one of the big things that kind of probably got him convicted, because she was just they said she was very credible. She was very sympathetic. And, you know, and they said the jury like just took to her right away. So it's good that she came and like helped get this motherfucker off the fucking streets. You know what I mean? So here was the cool part. So one of the stories that he told about his boat breaking down, the prosecutor was able to get like a couple of different boat experts. And he had a Bayliner. That was the boat that Oba Chandler had. And so he brings in a couple boat experts, basically saying, could what he is saying specifically happen to his boat happen to that boat? And both of them said no. Because what he said his gas line was leaking and it went into his bilge and it was all full of gas and the gas was empty and the boat wouldn't start. And the experts were like, bro, like the gas tank in that, it's like, if the gas was leaking, it would have to go straight up, like to all come out. And that is not working. And that's not going to happen. They're like, if it all leaked into your bilge, like if you tried to fucking, you know, your boat would explode. So it's just kind of like, it's just, there's like, and it's no way. And he said that he put duct tape on the hose and they're like, that wouldn't work either because it would just fucking corrode off of there or whatever. So it's like, you're full of shit. That's not what happened. So, and I think this was the part that I was saying earlier, like that I liked reading the transcript because you could tell that he was getting really, really nervous because he thought that he had come up with this foolproof plan, like, oh, my boat was fucked up, and he kind of sounded like he knew what he was talking about, you know what I mean, like with what had happened with his boat. But then like when they had the boat experts in there saying, it's like, yeah, but your boat has this, that, and the other, and doesn't have a valve, and doesn't have this and that and the other to keep this from happening, and all this other shit, and the prosecutors kept hammering on, and he just kept turning redder and redder, and I was just kind of like, oh, he knows he's fucking cooked at this point, which I thought was really funny. So they were able to like show that he was lying about that, like that he was, so obviously what else is he lying about? That he was out on the water that night, you know, he wasn't having boat trouble or anything like that. And they're also discovered that even though he said that he had called the Coast Guard or the Marine Patrol, obviously they keep records of all those calls, and they're like, yeah, nobody called us. Yeah. And he's like, and there were no Coast Guard boats out that the next morning either, because he said, oh, a Coast Guard boat came by and said, I'll send somebody to help you. He's like, yeah, we didn't have anybody out that morning in that area, so he's also full of shit.
They keep records on all that shit.
Yeah, so it's like, so he probably thought that they wouldn't check, but of course they're gonna fucking check.
Dumbass.
Dumbass.
He could have come up with an easier thing than that.
Yeah.
He overcomplicated this shit. Could say, yeah, I was out there, it was so nice, I fell asleep.
Yeah, it's like that's all you had to do.
Yeah, I just fell asleep, man. Like,
if you're gonna lie, don't make a lie so elaborate that you're gonna fucking trip yourself up like that. You know what I mean?
Man, it felt so good out there. I fucking fell asleep. Man, woke up this shit. Fucking 8 hours went by. Had a good sleep.
Yeah, because you can't.
How you can disprove
refute that? You can't disprove it.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But it's like coming up with this whole rigmarole about his engine leaking gasoline and then calling the Coast Guard. People can check that, obviously. Yeah. So it's like, and that's one of the things that really like kind of tripped him up.
I was fishing, couldn't catch nothing. Fucking got tired. Fucking dozed off.
Yeah.
So.
That's all you had to say.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, they try to be too clever. See.
Yeah.
You try to be too clever. This is why that's why I'm not a good liar or anything like that, because it's too much shit to keep track of.
Yeah.
You know? They try to come up with these big elaborate stories, like thinking they're smart and everything like that, but it's like, that's just more shit they can poke holes in.
Yeah.
Which is what happened here.
Got bored, started beating off. Blew my fucking stack, man. I was sleepy as shit after that. Fucking crawled off the center of the fucking boat, fell asleep. Disprove me. Disprove that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. What were you fantasizing about? Barbie twins, goddammit.
The Barbie twins.
How you can disprove that?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
This, I had an emergency fuel leak and shit. No. The whole Coast Guard, the whole U.S. Navy knows about it.
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't record it? Oh, shit. You crazy?
Well, maybe they didn't think it was worth writing down. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, come on now.
Yeah, he could have just said he fell asleep.
Yeah, easy. But no. Like I said, they have to try and be smarter than the cops.
Yeah.
And think that they're not going to check that shit. They check everything. They also were able to find, like, at his trial, that a guy that worked for him, had formerly worked for him, said that, he said something to the effect of, oh, I've got a date with 3 women tonight, or something like that. Like, on the day of the murders, like, before. So I'm guessing he was going out that evening. Like, oh, gotta go. I got a date with 3 women, you know, kind of thing.
He said
Chandler did to a worker, to an employee that he had. And this employee also said, like I was saying earlier, that he came to work early in the morning, like it's between 7 and 7:30, to drop some stuff off, but then he went back out in his boat again. And they were thinking, in hindsight, that he came in, like, to establish an alibi, like, hey, here I am, I'm at work, and then he went back out again to check and make sure the bodies hadn't floated back up, is probably what he was doing. Or make sure they were dead, or whatever.
I think he knew they were dead.
I think he just didn't want them to, like, float back up.
He may have still had them. They might have still been alive.
No, well, because he brought the boat in, and they weren't on the boat anymore.
They weren't on the boat, yeah. And there's no place he could have stashed them. He must have went out there. Yeah, he might have been paranoid. Thought they would resurface or something.
Yeah. Which they did just a few days later. Because, like I said, that's the thing. If you dump somebody in very cold water, and weigh them down, then a lot of times, they'll stay down there. But like I said, this is Tampa Bay in summertime. The water is very warm, and the bodies were very decomposed, and they bloated. I know this is horrible, but they bloated so much that they floated up even with the concrete block tied to them.
Yeah. And what's funny is that he thinks that they have to find the bodies in order for him to get caught. They don't need to find those bodies. They can still catch you.
Well, yeah. And it's just a lot harder.
It's just harder, yeah.
I mean, every now and then you do hear about, like, a successfully prosecuted case where there was no body.
Yeah.
But obviously they do prefer to have a body because it's a lot easier because you can get evidence. But in this case, they'd been in the water for so long that they didn't have much evidence on the bodies. But, they did have the rope and shit like that. So, and they knew approximately where they had been put in the water, and they knew that that's about where his boat was and shit like that. Also, I kind of love this. So Oba Chandler's daughter, I mean, he had like 8 kids, like I said, from 7 or 8 different women. One of his daughters, his name was Christe, Her and I believe her husband said that Oba had turned up at their house and said something about, because I think she lived back in Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. And said he turned up at their house and said, I can't go back to Tampa because I killed 3 women. She said he just told them that. According to her, that's his daughter.
Weird.
That he just told, oh, I can't go back there. Like, because I killed 3 women. And then he was afraid of going back.
I can't believe that he actually said that.
You know what's weird, though? It's like, it does seem like a lot of killers brag.
They try to get it off their chest or something.
And a lot of them, I think a lot of them like to brag, too.
Yeah.
Because how many times, like, have your, like, serial killers and, like, their girlfriend or something like that said, yeah, they said something about, like, some kind of offhand comment about, like, how they do about that, or, like, I don't know. I guess they think it's bragging. I'm not really sure.
It's weird. And
maybe they just think people will think they're joking, which I guess most people would. You know what I mean? It's like, shut up. What are you talking about? And that's probably what they thought, too, until later they're like, oh, wait, no, he was fucking serious.
It might be a kind of a way to get it off your chest.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like confessing.
And maybe because he thought it was family that they wouldn't turn him in.
Turn him in, yeah.
Although, like I said, I think a lot of times, too, like, if my dad had, like, come to me and said that, it's like, I would think he was kidding. And I think most people would probably think he was kidding. But then, like, I guess later on, after he got caught, they're like, oh, I guess he wasn't kidding. So then they testified against him.
No, my dad said I killed 3 women. Like, well, who? What are you talking about? I'd be interested. What are you talking about? When did this happen?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe people aren't inquisitive like I am. But no,
well, I'm inquisitive.
I don't let that shit go by.
I'm inquisitive.
I'd be like, what are you talking about?
I would just think... But I wouldn't necessarily think that it was true at first. I'd be like...
My dad never said
what?
anything
That's
fucking
fucked up.
sideways like me or out of the blue to me ever. That guy. He was boring. But no, if he said I killed somebody, I'd be like, yeah, who? Where? What happened? You know, and if it was some crazy shit, I just want to rape some chicks and throw them overboard, I'd be like, you son of a bitch.
I mean, and I would hope more people would turn people in when they said shit like that.
I'm gonna have to kill you.
I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah. He wasn't that type of guy, though, at all.
No.
My dad wouldn't kill anybody unless you were fucking with him.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true of most people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Karen says John Wayne Gacy told his workmate he had killed people. Yeah. Like I said, I feel like it's not... I don't know if it's common, but it's not uncommon. I think they just like to brag, or like you said... Maybe like they are confessing, but then like
it's
if you
a slick side way of confessing.
Well, yeah, and if you say something about it, they'll be like, I was just joking.
I'm just joking around.
I was just joking.
Something like that.
I didn't do that. Or they want to see how you'll react.
Yeah.
That might be that too.
Yeah.
So after all this, like I said, he denied. He basically said, I did have sex with that Judy chick, but it was consensual. She just changed her mind in the middle and I couldn't stop, whatever. And he said that he had met the Rogers family, but he had only given them directions and that was the last time that he saw them. But he, you know, obviously the evidence said otherwise. So, he was found guilty of all 3 murders and the jury took exactly 5 minutes to determine that he was guilty. And then they were just kind of like, well, we can't just come right out after like 5 minutes. And just, that seems kind of... So, because they were talking to the lady that was the jury forewoman. And she was like, I mean, we all pretty much were like, what, are you serious? Like, we're all just like, yep, guilty. Fuck yeah. And so she's like, we can't just go right back out. So they stayed in there for like an hour and a half. Just like... making sure they were just kind of hanging out in there. And then they like came out and said, yeah, he's guilty. And he ended up getting sentenced to death. I love this. The judge, she was great. She was just not having it, you know. And I love that I wrote this down. She said, you've not only forfeited your right to live among us, you have forfeited your right to live at all. That's what she said to him, like right to his face. And I thought that was pretty cool. And actually, like the forewoman of the jury, when they gave him the death penalty, she said, they need to do this swiftly. This man is a mutation of a human being, and he needs to be destroyed. They said in particular, like, all the women on the jury were fucking creeped out by the dude. They said that he was just so... I'm trying to think of, like, some of the words that they used, but they just said he was so arrogant. And it's, like, just the way he came in, like, he was always smirking at them. And, like, he just thought it was no big and he was just going to get away with it. And they were just intensely creeped out by him. Like, they didn't want to look at him. So yeah, they did not like this motherfucker at all. And, so yeah, so they put him on death row. He never did get prosecuted for Judy Blair's rape because he already got the death sentence for the Rogers family murders. And they didn't really want to have to put Judy Blair through that again. But like I said, man, good for her for testifying at the murder trial, because I think her testimony was like a big part of him getting convicted. And they sent him to the Union Correctional Institution. Obviously, his wife, Deborah, filed for divorce, which why wouldn't you? And they had a daughter together named Whitney. And obviously, you know, he was not allowed to see her. His ex-wife wouldn't even let him see photos of her. And they said that the whole time he was on death row, not a single person ever came to visit him.
Yeah, well, fuck that bitch.
I'm like, good. That's all you deserve. And so he actually, much like the jury foreman had said, they put him on a short list of executions. And remember how I said, like, the FBI profile said that he had probably killed previously. Just because, like I said, doing 3 victims at one time like that, they don't usually jump into the deep end like that. They usually build up. Like I said, there had been the rape previous to that, which he thought was going to be 2 victims, but then the other woman didn't show up. But he just went with what he had, I guess. So I think that's kind of what he was planning. But they think that he probably did something like this previously. For a time, I believe, he was a suspect in the 1982 murder of a woman in Florida that was found floating off Anna Maria Island. But it turned out that this woman, who was actually unidentified for a very long time, but in 2011, they finally identified her as Amy Rose Hurst. They later figured out that actually her husband had killed her, so it wasn't Oba Chandler. Now, he never did get charged with any other murders. However, after he was actually executed in 2011. Like I said, he was kind of on the short list. And Rick Scott, like, was just kind of like, yeah, we're getting rid of this motherfucker, like, as quickly as possible. It was the day before his 65th birthday. So, you know, happy birthday, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Here's your lethal injection. So I love that his last meal, you know what his last meal was? This fascinates me. I love what executed people's last meal is. His last meal was 2 salami sandwiches on white bread, 1 peanut butter sandwich on white bread, and iced tea. That's it.
Which is basic. It's a base.
That's what I thought. I was like, you're gonna die. Like, you could eat anything you wanted, and that's what you're having. Holy shit. So yeah.
Whatever.
And I will say too that before the execution, Oba Chandler had written a note to them reading, "You are executing an innocent man today." Shut up, bitch. No, they weren't.
He's fighting to proclaiming his innocence.
He's full of shit.
No, he did it.
Yeah, of course he did. Now, I should also note that while his murder trial was still going on in 1983, he was also considered a suspect in several other sex crimes, rapes and whatnot, that took place between 1963 and 1991. There was a 1963 rape in Pinellas Park. There was another one in Cincinnati. and attempted rape in 1965, a rape in Daytona Beach in 1973, and a 1991 in Pasco County. Also, in 1991, they think he maybe abducted and molested a 15-year-old girl also in Daytona Beach. So they're not sure if he did those, but he is a suspect for sure. And there was also a case where he introduced himself as Mr. Wright to, not Mr. Wright, like Wright, that was one of his aliases. And he invited two women out on his boat. And from their description, it sounded like the same boat that he had killed the Rogers family on. And he took them out to sea, and he ended up bringing them back to shore, though, because they said someone was waiting for them. So it seems like he was this was a month before, the Rogers murders. So I think he was building up to it. And then 3 years after they fried this motherfucker, I guess they didn't fry him. They used to fry him in the electric chair. But now they just do lethal injection. But 3 years later, DNA revealed that he had also murdered another woman, a 20-year-old named Ivelisse Berrios-Beguerisse. I hope I'm pronouncing that sort of correctly. She was raped and strangled in Coral Springs in Florida in November of 1990. She was a newlywed. She just got married. And she lived in Davie, Florida. And she worked at a sporting goods store at the Sawgrass Mills Mall. And she had gone to work, and she didn't come home. And her husband went to the mall and found her car in the parking lot with two of the tires slashed. They think, in this case, that Oba Chandler had been watching her for a couple days, stalking her. And then slashed her tires, and then played Good Samaritan when she came out and saw that the tires were slashed, and then abducted her. Huh. Her husband had reported her missing, and a few hours after that, they actually found her body, just dumped under a mailbox in somebody's front yard.
Damn.
They found her naked. She had ligature marks on her wrists and legs, and brown tape stuck in her hair. And for a long time, like I said, this happened in 1990, so it was a cold case for a long time until 2014 when they got a DNA hit. So Oba Chandler did that one too.
He was a serial killer.
And this was after the Rogers murders. And this woman, like I said, they think that he watched her for at least a couple of days. That he was watching her come to and from work or whatever. Because he only lived a mile and a half away from that mall at the time that she was killed, and had moved away not long after the murder. So that case is now considered solved, so that was another one they got. So yeah, like I said, I would be very surprised if they didn't come up with some more that this motherfucker did, because by the time they caught him, he was already in his 40s, and he had started committing crimes when he was fucking 14 or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, even though the early shit was relatively minor, fraud and robbery and shit like that, this kind of shit doesn't come from nowhere. You know what I mean? It's nobody just one day decides, hey, I'm gonna kidnap 3 women and rape them and tie fucking cement blocks around their necks and throw them and drown them off the side of a fucking boat. Who does that? You know what I mean? So it's I kind of feel like he was building up to this. And like I said, we heard about the rape, and then there was another incident where after they found out about it, where these 2 women said, hey, this guy that called himself Jim Wright, he picked us up in a boat and took us out in the water. Nothing happened, but they thought it was suspicious, and they think it was probably him. So he was, building up to it. I guess he had built up this fantasy in his head of getting 2 or 3 women out there in the water, and then just knowing they can't go anywhere, and that he could do anything he wants with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was trying it out. He wanted to see what the scene was like.
Yeah. So I think it was almost like a trial run.
Yeah, I want to know how easy it is to get somebody on and off the boat. What's it like when you get them out there? what looks routine, what doesn't, that kind of shit. He was trying to get comfortable out there.
Yeah, it's like, how can I, like, wrangle them and, like, get
Right.
them to do what I want them to do, and...
That was just his boat thing, though.
Yeah.
See, he was a serial killer before that. He's killed other people.
Yeah, and the fact the woman that he killed in 1990, he didn't do that on a boat. You know, he was just she just worked at the mall, and I guess he saw her.
The boat was privacy.
Yeah.
See, he could keep him for a long period of time out on the water with no witnesses. Because, you know, there's a lot of privacy out there in the open ocean.
Yeah.
So that'd be a perfect place. If you want a long-term victimization style scenario.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's what it would have been.
So that's that's
I
what,
just-
that's what he was looking for. But he wanted to see what the routine was like.
I just
He had to
can't
get comfortable out
imagine.
there first.
I just can't imagine what that family went through out there.
It was worse than what you think it is.
Oh, I'm sure. That's what I'm thinking, because it's like,
I think they
now
were
that
out
I'm
there-
thinking about it, they're probably out there most of the night.
Yeah, they were out there for a long time, I'm sure. You see, the guy had a refractory period. So if you rape one, you're going to be satisfied for a while. You got to recover. And that might take him, a man his age, a couple of hours. And you see, he's going to want to use them up.
Yeah. Because
So
he
I
went
think-
through all the trouble.
So I think they were out there, yeah. I think they were out there at least 12 hours. And he was playing all kinds of games. Probably getting them to compete and shit. Who's going to die first, that type of deal. And you see, you kill one of them, throw them overboard, probably the mama first, because that's the authority figure. Now you got the girls. And they saw that happen. So now you can ratchet down on them a little bit more. They know that you're actually going to kill them. So you can play games, you know. Because that's what he did. I'm sure he played games with them.
Yeah, like you said, I'm sure it's like,
Yeah.
as bad as it just sounds when you're describing it,
Yeah.
like just from the case file or whatever, it's like it was probably way, way worse.
Yeah. And you had their mouths covered with tape, but not the nose.
I
So-
think.
well,
Because they
were
would
drowned,
have suffocated. Yeah,
Yeah,
they drowned.
they drowned, so
they
their
found
nose was
water
up.
in all their lungs.
which makes me think that the only reason why he would do that is to keep them from talking.
Yeah.
So maybe they were saying things that weren't turning him on, so he silences them, so he can keep the game going longer.
Or they were screaming and he was afraid someone would hear them. But it's
I don't
like
think so.
probably.
I don't
I don't
think
think
that's what it
anybody
is. I
would
think
hear
what it is,
you
they're
out in the middle
calling
of
him an
that. It's a
asshole.
big bay.
They're probably like calling him an asshole, or saying things, you know, that weren't appropriate to what he wanted. He wanted terror, but they were probably like, "You fucking asshole," you know, that kind of shit. He didn't
Yeah,
want,
that maybe
he didn't want to
that's-
hear that.
Because I think
They
he
weren't
he got off on fear.
Yeah, they probably weren't scared enough.
Yeah.
They were probably fighting, so he covered their mouths up. Now they can't really fight back verbally. Because if you see videos of people fucking getting killed in combat and shit where they're fighting, there's no fear. It's anger. Even the victims are angry. I saw one where a dude fucking blasted a husband and a wife. There was a long-term fight, and the fucking dude blasted the woman's husband right in the face with a fucking pistol, I think it was. And the wife didn't cower. She's like, "You fucking asshole! You fucking asshole! You son of a bitch!" And then he shot her. She didn't cower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for these types, for particularly this type of dude,
Yeah.
it seems to me
He doesn't want to hear shit like that. So
no, like
yeah.
that's not going along with his,
With his
what he had
fantasy.
pictured
Yeah.
was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like
So
you
they-
said, he probably wants people to cower and be afraid of
I
him,
got
and
a
if they're
feeling- I got a
not,
feeling they covered their mouths because they were fighting back. They probably weren't very compliant.
yeah, maybe so.
Fucking asshole. That kind of shit. Piece of shit.
I hope they did that.
I think that's what they do.
I just, it's
They either say nothing or they do that.
yeah.
I don't think they beg.
I mean, I know some people would, and like I said, you never know what you would do in that situation, but it kind of sucks because I was watching I watched several documentaries about this and stuff, and inevitably, there's gonna be some people in the comments that are saying, why would you go out on a boat with a dude you don't know? But the thing about it is that like I said, the dude managed to impregnate at least 7 different women and was able to talk women into coming out on his boat. So he had to have some kind of charm or come across as harmless, or that wouldn't have worked. If he came across as creepy, he wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, I know that the female detective that talked to him said when we arrested him and I was like, you know, interviewing him and stuff like that, I was just kind of like, man, this dude didn't seem like anything. Like, how did he manage to get all these women to, like, talk these women into shit? But it's just kind of like, I don't know. You never know. And so I kind of feel like there was a slight bit of, like, victim blaming where it's like, you know, you're on vacation with your daughters. You know, you didn't protect them. You know, why would you go out on a stranger's boat? Like, that's a crazy thing to do. Blah, blah. But it's like, I don't know. Why did all those girls hitchhike back in the 70s and 80s?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, yeah, it wasn't the smartest thing to do, but it's like, I think, and the thing about it too is that the Rogers, I mean, they were, I don't want to say naive necessarily, but they, you know, they were from a tiny little dairy farm, like in Ohio, and it's like they knew everybody in their town. It's like they probably didn't think anything of it. You know, the dude probably seemed nice and harmless enough, and, you know, they were on vacation. They probably didn't think anything was wrong. You know, why would you?
You don't know what he told him. You don't know what he told him either.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like if you saw it happen, you might have been like, oh, yeah, I might have fallen for that too. You know what I mean? Like, I think nowadays, I mean, probably for good reason, like, everyone's a lot more cynical nowadays. Like, if some rando, like, hey, you want to go out on a boat? Fuck no, I don't. Fuck no, I don't want to go on your boat.
We're on a boat. I'm going to go pick up my wife and shit like that.
Yeah, it's like he might have said something like that.
And
you know
we're going to go
to
do this. And you don't know what he's going to say.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to go get my family, and we're going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
we'll
like,
all go off to fucking Disney World or some shit like that. You don't know what they told him.
Yeah, you don't know. So it's like he could have told him that something sounded like a good story. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't necessarily think anything of it. Like I said, that they were able to go out there, like, that he was able to talk him into going out there.
Yeah.
And the thing about the woman that got raped, Judy Blair, is that she was out there all day with him on the boat and he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
It was only after he dropped her off, she went to dinner, and then she got back on the boat later on that evening, then he did it. He was trying to, like, lull her into complacency, being like, yeah, we were out on the boat all day and it was fine.
Well,
you know
not only lulling her into complacency, he's probably building up his courage.
Yeah, that too. But so she obviously didn't think anything was wrong because
he wasn't comfortable enough to do his shit yet.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
So maybe that was the first time he'd done it.
I don't know.
But he might have done it after.
I think that involves the boat.
Yeah.
The boat was his new thing. I think he had done it before on land.
Yeah, maybe so.
And I think maybe it scared him on land. It was too easy to get caught.
Yeah.
Too many witnesses and people could hear you. There wasn't any privacy. He wanted privacy. You can't get that in a hotel or some shit like that. So, you know, it's gonna be out on the water, and he had to get comfortable with it. That's what I think it was.
Yeah,
he had to get comfortable with the routine of going out there and coming back, and, you know, do people know that they're out in the water with me, that kind of shit, you know. So he's trying to get comfortable with that concept.
Yeah, but it's like this. Ugh.
Yeah, so you had to have experience doing it.
It's just a fucking horrible story. It's just a horrible story. Like, nobody deserves to fucking die like that, like they did.
We live in a fucking insane world.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just super fucked up. Well, I'm not saying nobody deserves to die like that. I mean, he'd certainly deserve to die like that. And I saw a couple of comments as like, man, they should have waterboarded him to death, so he could, like, know what it was like.
It's not just humans, man. Fucking I saw a video on Instagram.
I got pee.
Somebody from India posted of a male monkey with a child monkey, and it was raping it. And the dude yells at that monkey. That male monkey looked at him. Fucking, you could tell he knew he was doing something wrong, and dropped that little baby and ran. So weird shit happens even in the animal kingdom, you know. And I was just like, man, they putting that shit on Instagram. I think it was Instagram. Maybe I don't even think it dropped the baby monkey. It took it with him, and climbed up. But you could definitely tell what that monkey was doing with that little baby that it had stolen. Baby monkey. Like, man, he's cracking that little baby. And the Indian guy's like, hey, you just like that. And he looks over like, you could tell he was embarrassed. Looked guilty that he was doing something wrong and ran off. So it's just weird, man. Fucking the world's a weird place, man. No, but I have a feeling that what happened out there on that boat wasn't very straightforward. It was something that was a prolonged episode. Close the restroom myself. You can shut it down if you want to, I guess.
Yeah, that was like a... Yeah. Like I said, the more we're talking about it, because I was already... You know how I do. Like with my overthinking and everything. And I was already picturing what it would have been like out there on that boat and like how horrifying that would have been. But like now the more I'm thinking about it and the more I'm thinking about the timeline and all that other kind of stuff, and like I'm like, oh yeah, Tom's right. He would have had him out there for a long time, so it's probably way worse than what I initially imagined. So that's great. You know what I mean? Oh my god. This is like, yeah. And that's the thing, it's like I don't know why, you know, yes, there have been serial killers with more victims. There have been serial killers that like did horrible, like, you know, the toolbox killers or the toy box guy or whatever that like did all that torture and shit like that. But for some reason, I don't know, this one kind of stuck with me, which is why I kind of wrote it down. And it's funny because it stuck with Tom too, apparently, because he remembered it before he even knew what the dude's name was. Like at the beginning of the show, he was like, oh, that guy that took the women out on the boat. I was like, yeah, that's this guy. So he remembered it too. And it's just, and I guess because it happened in Florida and in a place that I'm familiar with, because like, you know, I lived in Tampa, so I know like everywhere they're talking about, I know where that is. I know where that Days Inn is. I know, you know, I know where that boat launch is. I know where all that shit is. And then he did some shit in Daytona Beach too, which is my hometown. So I think this one like kind of hit a little bit closer to home just because I was familiar with all of the stuff. I guess that's kind of true of like most people when they hear about crimes that happen where they live or whatever. All right, so I guess it's getting kind of late, so I guess I'm gonna wrap it up. My voice is kind of fucked up again. I don't know what this... I never get sick, ever. But, like, the last month or so, like, I've gotten sick legit, like, 3 times. Like colds. Like, one will go away, and then I'll get another one, and then I'll kind of get another one. And Tom's got it, too. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's happening. I don't know if something that I'm on is suppressing my immune system, or I don't know what's going on. I feel okay, but, like, I was, like, very phlegmy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've been sick. I got sick.
Yeah, and Tom was like, not last night, but the night before, he was just like coughing and like he couldn't sleep and shit like that.
Sleep on the couch.
Yeah, to go sleep on the couch because he says, I mean, it didn't. I heard it at first, but it didn't wake me up after. So it's like after a time, you probably could have stayed. All right, so I guess we're gonna wrap it up for this evening. Have a little bit of time. We can watch. We've been watching The Food That Built America. I didn't realize that they had a season 6. Because I love that show, and I was just watching the old ones. And then I went over to Hulu, and I was like, wait, what? They got like 10 more episodes. I haven't seen any of these. Yeah. So I started watching those. I love that shit. So hopefully I'll watch an episode of that. No more true crime, because this is kind of, you know, I don't want Tom getting bummed out. You know what I mean? So we'll watch something kind of more fun and entertaining. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, if that's the right word to use, at least in this case. You know, I think it's an interesting case, even though it's fucking horrible and shit like that. But yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this evening, and we will see you guys again for the Friday night show, which is Sidetracks. If you're new here, which I don't think many of you are, but that's our show where we just drink and talk about whatever. Like, there's no topic, and it's super fun. So we just get drunk with you guys before the weekend and talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. And it's always a good time. So hopefully you can join us for that. And have a good rest of your evening, you guys. Have a good day tomorrow. And we will see you on Friday night. Good night.